Hello, my name is Kate. Welcome to my September update for my Pan That Palette / Pan Those Eyeshadows. My Pan That palette that I am working on is the Too Faced Natural Eyes in the old tin packaging. I have had this I can't remember if I had it since my birthday in 2016 or 2017, but either way, this is not a young palette, so I am trying to get as much progress on it as I can by the end of the year. My ultimate goal is to finish everything that's in here. So let's talk about it. We have a lot of movement since last month, so brace yourselves. Our first shade in here that we have to talk about is Heaven. Last month, somebody commented on the video that the shadows were jumping out of the pan. They were so excited to be gone, which was true. If you will recall from my last video, there were a couple of chunks of Heaven left that fell out. I did take those out and I crushed them back up, and it took me 10 uses to use them up. The next shade in here is Cashmere Bunny. This has been gone since June 9th. The next shade is Sexpresso. I used this month 29 times. I use this primarily in my brows. I do think that there was more progress this month than previous months, because what I use my brow brush is very soft, and I was using a stiffer angled brush in this a couple of times to use as an eyeliner, and I think that that got us a lot of movement. Next up is Silk Teddy. I use this primarily as a highlighter shade. It does not come off this pink when it's on your skin. I used this month 18 times, which seems wrong. I use this just about every day that I do my makeup, so I don't know where that number came from. I did wear makeup a little bit less this month, or if I did it, I was just putting on less. It's been a wild month. So yeah, I do think there's a bit of pan expansion there, though. There's a little messy part over here because when I sat down to film this, I stuck my finger right into it. But I do think that this actual pan every month is just getting much lower. Like I'm using it because I'm going in there with a big brush. It's pretty evenly wearing it all down rather than focusing on any one particular area. My next shade is Push Up, which you will notice looks a lot different than last month. I just went through a phase where this is all I wanted to wear on my eye for like a whole week, and I just couldn't get in there with my finger anymore. My finger was just hitting the bottom of the pan and not picking up any product. So I did go ahead and repress that. My next goal will be to hit pan on it again so that we can have a pan in every single shade, because as you can see, Erotica has a pan in it this month. Erotica is one of my shades in my Pan Those Eyeshadows quad, and I did not think that I was going to hit pan on this month, but here she is. It's not a huge pan, but it's there. I used this shade 25 times this month, sorry. I also used Push Up 23 times. Yeah, I was just going into that with that stiff angled brush to use as an eyeliner, and it made loads of progress. Very excited about that one. Nudie is the next shade on our list. I used this 26 times this month, and this has also had a ton of movement. Could I finish this up next month? I don't know, because I said that about Heaven when I had about this much left, and it took me a month and 10 days to do it. So I think probably not September, maybe like the start of October, that will be gone. Next up is Honeypot. I used this only 6 times this month, but I set the goal to use it 5 times. I don't think that there's a ton of expansion there. And then Chocolate Martini is still in the project. You'll notice that even though this pan is empty, there's no date. That's because it's not gone. Chocolate Martini I used 3 times this month. I decluttered this last month into a nail polish because the quality of this palette is not great, especially what used to be Chocolate Martini and Erotica. Does that look like a matte to you? No? Well, it is. It's a matte with glitters in it, which is the worst type of eyeshadow in my opinion. It's also very stiff. It goes on very patchy, and I don't really like either of these colors on my eyes. So I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to pan both of them, but I thought that Chocolate Martini would make a very pretty fall nail polish color, and it does. I used it 3 times this month. This mark was just from when I did this whole science experiment, and then this second mark is after those 3 uses. So yes, this is still going to be in the project. And I think that's everything for this palette. I will tell you how I use these shades because you might think my usage numbers are really high. I repurpose just about everything here. I use Sexpresso for my brows, for a liner, usually use Erotica as a liner. Push-Up I do wear on my lids a lot, but I also use this as a little bit of a shimmery bronzer, which really doesn't show up that much. Silk Teddy is my highlight shade. I use Nudie as like a contour bronzer shade. And then Honeypot gets so little use because I do only use that on my lids. But that's everything for this palette. So now let's talk about my Pan Those eyeshadows. So this is what my quad has been for the past month. On top we have Erotica. Down here we have Libra from the Carly Bible ABH palette. Moo from the Carly Bible ABH palette. And then this shade, I don't know what this shade is. This is a matte, like light green from my ColourPop Custom palette. Now, before we get into it, I will show you, there's not really any spoilers here, so I will show you my ColourPop palette. As I've mentioned in the past, I purchased this off of Mercari. The Aura and Out palette is discontinued, and not all of these shades are from Aura and Out. I knew that going into it, and that's why I bought this, because I liked the colors that are in here so much. But I have done some work to figure out what is in here, and I've rearranged the palette a little bit. So these 3 on the outside and this pressed glitter are from the original Aura and Out palette, so those shade names are correct. I also determined that these 3 on this side are from the In a Trance palette, so I also have the shade names for those, which leaves these 2, I have no idea what they are. This green is the one that's in our quad this month. You get to look at my air conditioner, thank you, you're welcome. So what I have approximated this to, and I'm going to call it that, is Chances Are, which I think is from Just My Luck, maybe? I looked it up on Temptalia. I looked at the swatches and the close-up, and I don't think it's the same shade because this is a matte with like a little bit of glitters in it, although it shows up entirely matte on the swatch. But I'm going to call it Chances Are from here on out, because if anybody wanted something similar, which you shouldn't, it's not a good shadow, that's the closest approximation I can find. Anyway, lastly, we do have this little pink right here. This is a eyeshadow stick that's in my Project Pan for the month. It's not part of my Pan Those eyeshadows, but I was using it as a companion often, and that's also why I'm not doing a quintet, because I just don't want to be pulled in too many directions. Okay, all of that aside, let's talk about our shadows. You've already seen Erotica. We have 1 pan out of this project that took me 18 uses from the start to hit pan on, and then I used it an additional 7 times. Libra is looking like this month. So we have a pretty substantial dip in there. No pan yet, and I don't know how close we are to pan. Prior to this project, Libra had 14 uses on it ever, not counting swatches. And then this month I used it 15 times. So I think that's some pretty substantial progress. And you can see in the swatch, it shows up with this like almost pinky purple shifty finish on it. I really love this shade. I am wearing all 5 of these different shades on my lids today, and I put Libra in my crease. My favorite way to wear it is as an all over lid shade. I feel like that just lets all of the shiftiness and the colors stand out as much as they can, but we make it work. Next up is the shade Moo from the same palette. This shade also had 14 uses on it prior to rolling it in, and I also used it 15 times this month. This is just like much stiffer, like it has a very different feel than Libra does. And I do apply both of these primarily with my finger, but there's just not as much of a dip in there but that's all right. We will keep going on it. And then you have already seen, chances are, but I'll show you again. Prior to rolling this in, I had only used this 3 times, and this month I used it 9 times. I do think that I'm getting a fairly decent little dip in there. Still not close to pan, but this is very powdery, and honestly, for only 9 uses, the size of the dip that's in there, I think is pretty good. So we'll keep working on all of those. Now, we have 1 shade that is going to be rolled out, and I am going to not do this in a fun, exciting way. We will not be randomizing this shade. I am going to replace Erotica with Push Up, with the objective to just hit pan on this again. I also wanted it to be from this palette. We're gonna be gone for like the whole month of September, and this is all I'm planning on taking with me. So I know that this one will definitely get a lot of use. I'll swatch it up here, just so you can see that little swatch. It shows up much more coppery on a swatch than in the pan, but not terribly exciting, but it's my project. I can make up my own rules. As far as the other colors go, my rules for myself are that I want to use them 30 times and over the course of 3 months before I can roll them out. So next month will be the 3rd month, and at the rate that I've been using them, I definitely think 30 uses is possible, or pan on particularly Libra could certainly happen. So follow along if you want to see more of that progress, and otherwise I will see you in my next video. Thanks, bye.